Welcome to today's spectacular RootsMagic webinar. My name is Michael Booth, and I'm Vice President of RootsMagic and one of its developers. And also with us today is the Roots Magician himself, Bruce Busby. And Bruce, of course, is the President of RootsMagic and its author. Often our webinars are in the evenings, but we like to shake things up every now and then and have one in the afternoon. And this gives our users in Europe and those who otherwise couldn't make it in the evenings a chance to attend a webinar live. And today's topic is search techniques in RootsMagic. Many of you out there can find a person by name in RootsMagic, but do you know how to find something a little more specific? Could you find, for example, all females born in England between 1780 and 1820 who never married? So, if not, you're going to learn something today. You're going to learn about RootsMagic's powerful searching capabilities that can help you find what you're looking for in both your own file and online on the internet. Now, I'd like to start out this webinar with a quick poll. That is, do you know how to find all females born in England between 1780 and 1820 who never married? Go ahead and answer yes, no, or easy. Just look at each person one at a time. Okay, and the results? 12% of you out there said yes. You do know how to find all females born in England between 1780 and 1820 who never married. Great. 84% of you said no. And those 84% of you, I think you're going to learn something very interesting today and very useful. And 3% of you are smart Alex, who said it's just easy to look at each person one at a time. Okay, well, with the poll out of the way, I'm going to turn the time over to Bruce.
Okay, what we're going to do is we are going to teach you, it was kind of interesting looking at this poll with 84% who would like to learn how to find every woman who was born between certain dates who hasn't been married, and so on. And so we're going to show you exactly how to do that. But I'm going to kind of gradually ease you into that instead of showing you, just right up front how to do that. We're going to show you a few little tips and tricks that you can use. So this is our sample database. Okay, again, no real people in here, but it's set up so that we can do some searching. So what I'm going to do is there's a menu item across the top here called Search. And this is where you're going to find a bunch of searching tools. And we're going to talk about each of these different items in here. We're going to talk about the person list, which we sometimes call the RootsMagic Explorer. We're going to talk about the family list, how to go to the root person, move a person to that primary position, how to do search and replace, how to use bookmarks, and how to use the history. We're also going to show you a few other things beyond that. So let's go ahead and get started with the person list. Now I can either go to search and then the person list, or I can click the little magnifying glass right here. They both do exactly the same thing. And when I click on that, RootsMagic is going to open up, again, what we call the RootsMagic Explorer. Now this is a list of everybody in my file. And as I go right here, I can scroll up and down to see people in the file. And as I click on a person, RootsMagic is going to show me the information about that person over on the right side, and it's going to show me that person's immediate family. So their spouses, children, parents, and siblings in the lower half. Now, we're using a pretty low resolution screen here to make sure that everybody can see it okay on their screen. If you are using this screen, you are able to click on the little corners and make this screen larger or smaller. You can also click on the little bar, the little divider bar. This is called a slider. So I can actually move that back and forth to change the sizing of these. I can do the same thing as well with the line between the individual information and the family members. So I can resize these to fit my particular families or what I want to see. Okay, so let's go ahead and show you the first way to search for somebody, and that's the easiest, is just click on the list and start typing their name. S-M-I-T-H, comma, C-H-A-R. So as I type the name, RootsMagic is going to do what's called an incremental search and move to whoever matches whatever I've typed so far. Okay, that's the easiest way. If you happen to know their name, if you know their last name and their first name, that's the easiest way to do that, is just click on that and begin typing. Okay, so what I'm going to do next, though, is we're going to click on NameFind. Now, what NameFind does is it lets me find people when I don't know exactly what their name is, but I maybe know close to what their name is. So if I click on NameFind, RootsMagic has a couple of fields, and I can say, oh, okay, I want you to look for Howards, any Howard that I have. And when I click OK, RootsMagic is going to find the first Howard. Now you'll notice in this case it's his middle name. Okay, so it doesn't have to be his first name. So if I was looking for Howard Smith, if I just typed Smith, comma, Howard, I would miss this one right here because RootsMagic would be looking for Smith, comma, Howard. But by using NameFind, it will find people with that in their middle name as well. I'm going to go ahead and click on Next to go find the next Howard Smith. Okay, there's a Howard Smith Sr., Howard Smith Jr. Now there's also a Howard Smythe. Okay, now why did it find Howard Smith? The reason is because that really is Howard Smith's. Howard Smythe is an alternate name. So RootsMagic is also going to find people by their alternate names. So when you search for a person, even if it's an alternate name, it's not their primary name, RootsMagic will find them. Click Next. Okay, and there's no more matches in that direction. Okay, so that's how we can find everybody whose name is Howard. I'm going to go ahead and click on NameFind again. And let's say instead of looking for a particular given name, and of course it would search for their nicknames as well, I'm going to type in Smythe. Okay, we saw that one Smythe. I'm going to say find all my Smythes. Now, of course, I could just come over here and start typing S-M-Y-T-H. But by doing it through this NameFind, it finds Howard Smith, even though that is an alternate name. It's going to find him based on that. I can click on Next, and it finds the actual alternate name. So this NameFind is a powerful little tool to find people when you know kind of what their name is, but not exactly. Okay, let's do one more, and so you're going to see the real power behind this. And I'm going to look for Margaret Jones. Okay, so I'm looking for Margaret Jones. So I'm going to click OK, and there's Margaret Jones, Margaret K. Jones. I'm going to click on Next, and RootsMagic has found Margaret K. Well, the reason for that is because if you look over here, she married Thomas Jones. So even though I was looking for her based on a married name, Margaret Jones, it will find her even though I have her entered by her maiden name. So when you do that NameFind, you can find the given name or nicknames, and again, this also looks in the alternate names, and then for the surname, it will find either their birth name or their married name. So in other words, for a female, it will find them by their birth name or their maiden name. There's one additional option right here, allow close matches. What that means is normally whatever you type into these two fields, RootsMagic is going to look exactly for that name, exactly as you typed it. If you say allow close matches, that's going to find people based on the soundex on their name. In other words, if their name, if you look for Larry or Leroy, and if you type in one, it could find under either if you allow for close matches there. Okay, so that's a handy little tool, that NameFind. Before we get into the full-blown find, there's one other option for finding a person, and that's record number. So if you happen to know what record number is, if you're using that record number for people, and you happen to have people memorized by their record number, you can do that. You can come in here and say, oh, I want you to go find person number 400, and I don't have 400 people, so it goes to the last person. Let's go with person number 200. And so it will jump to person number 200. So that's a quick way if you want to find people based on their record number. Okay, so now let's get into the really fun part of searching here, and that is the Find button. Okay, when I click on Find, RootsMagic brings up this screen right here, and it happens to remember the last thing I looked for. Now, when I did that NameFind, RootsMagic was actually using the regular old search. It just created, it was saying the given or nickname contains Margaret and the surname, birth, or marriage contains Jones. So it was actually using this feature in order to do that NameFind. We just create that, and so you can do that type of search from this screen. This just gives you, the NameFind just gives you an easy way, just fill in a couple of fields to get that same search. Okay, so in this case, I want to start from scratch, so I really don't need these right here. So I'm going to click the clear button, and by doing that, that's going to reset my search screen back to the defaults, back to nothing. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's start with a fairly simple search. So when you look at this screen, don't be intimidated by it. It looks complicated, but it's very easy to use despite how much power it has. And by the end of this webinar, hopefully you'll be able to see how easy this really is to find people based on almost any criteria you can think of. So the first thing I want to do is I'm going to look for people born in Iowa. Now I know in our little teaser it says all females born in England, but this particular database doesn't have people born in England, so we'll pretend like Iowa is England, and we're going to look for people born in Iowa. So I'm going to come to the first row where I'm going to basically say I want to find everybody whose birth, now all the events that I've got in the program, including ones I've created myself, will be in this list. There's a lot of different things you can search for. You can search for things in RootsMagic that you can't come close to searching for in other programs. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and select birth, and once I've selected that I'm wanting to look at births, I can choose, am I looking at birth dates or places or place details or values or notes or sources or their age or exists. But what I want to do right now is I want to find people whose birthplace contains. Now you can see how many different options you have here. I can say everybody whose birthplace equals Iowa or contains Iowa. And there's a difference. If I say I want people whose birthplace equals Iowa, that is only going to find people whose birthplace is exactly Iowa. Nothing else. No city, no county, just Iowa. That's what equals means. It means it is the same. The birthplace is Iowa. By saying contains, we're saying the birthplace contains Iowa, even though it may contain some other things, like the city and the county. So I've gone ahead and I said I want to find people whose birthplace contains Iowa, and I'm just going to say OK. And RootsMagic is going to go to the first person whose birthplace contains Iowa. And now I can use prior and next to go back and forth. So I'm going to go find the next one. There's the next one. And the next one. And the next one. And as I go through these, you can look and you can see every one of them has a birthplace that contains Iowa. And I can keep doing next until I get to a point where it says there are no more. Okay? If I overshoot what I'm looking for, I can click prior to go backwards through that list. It goes to the previous one that has that. So I can use prior and next to go back and forth through the list of all the people who were born in Iowa. Okay, let's go ahead and click on Find. and it's going to have what we already entered in there, and I'm going to leave that in there, and I'm going to add more information. Okay, I'm going to say I want everybody whose birthplace contains Iowa, and then I can say and or, and I'm going to leave that as and their sex, and then I only have those options: is male, is female, is unknown, is not male, not female, and not unknown. I'm going to say is female. So in other words, I want all the females who were born in Iowa. Okay. Now, as I mentioned, I could say and or. Okay. If I choose and, it means both of these have to be true. This has to be true, and this has to be true. In other words, their birthplace has to contain Iowa, and they have to be female. If I were to change this or, it means any of them can be true. They could be born in Iowa, or they could be female. So this would actually find people who were born in Iowa even if they're male, or it would find people who are female even if they weren't born in Iowa. So of course in this case we want and. We want them to be born in Iowa and be female. Click OK. Okay. You'll see it's skipping those men who were born in Iowa, and it jumps straight to Estella Davis. Okay. There's Emma, Annie, Delia, Laura. So you can see it's only giving me the females who were born in Iowa. Okay, so let's go ahead and click on Find, and we're going to add a little bit more here. So I'm going to say and birth. We're going to choose birth again because we wanted them between two different dates. So I'm going to go ahead and say their birth date is after 1850 and their birth date is before 1870. Okay, once again, I'm using and so that all of them have to be true. Okay, so I'm looking for people who were born in Iowa, and they're female, and they were born after 1850. Okay, so obviously that would be 1850, 60, 70, all the way up till today. But then this and says that birth date has to be before 1870, so that puts it in a range. After 1850, before 1870. So when I click OK on this one, it jumps to Emma. Okay, there's her birth date. Okay, she's female. She was born between 1850 and 1870, and she was born in Iowa. Okay, here's the second one. Okay, so there were two of them. Now, I don't know if you noticed when I did this, they were both married. Okay, see, she had a marriage here, and Emma had a marriage as well. Okay, the last criteria in our teaser was that the person was not married. So in other words, when we add that particular option, we probably shouldn't find anybody because we don't have anybody that fits all of that criteria. So if I go into Find, I'm going to come down to this last one. I'm going to say and I'm going to go ahead and pick marriage. I want that marriage event. Okay, now this is where we can get a little fancier. Instead of just looking at dates and places, we can see marriage fact exists is false. Okay, in other words, we only want people who does not have a marriage fact. Their marriage exists is false. Okay, I know that sounds a little convoluted. We could have said marriage exists or does not exist, but we wanted to try to keep this little list right here fairly compact without a zillion different options. So we basically want exists is false. When I click OK, there are no matches because we have no females born in Iowa between 1870 or 1850 and 1870 who were not married. Now I do see a question, is 1850 and 1870 included? The answer to that is no, because it says is after and is before. So if you wanted to include 1850 and 1870, so in other words, if I went into here, if I actually wanted it to be 1850 and actually include that, I would actually want this to be 1849. I would want it to be after 1849 and before 1871. Okay, because before and after do exactly what they say, before that or after that. So you can adjust those dates. Now, I've just been putting the year in here, but you can put exact dates in here. So if you wanted to find everybody who had something happen before or after an exact date, you can do that. You can put the day, the month, and the year in there whenever you're comparing with dates. So let's go ahead, and I'm actually going to go ahead and change this to, let's do 1980. No, let's not do that. Let's do 1900. Let's widen that up and see if there's actually any that actually match. When I click OK, there are none. Okay, so are there any questions, Mike?
People are asking about what is the date format that you can enter, and like, do you need to key in exact dates, or can you just enter a month and a year, things like that?
Oh, yeah, for the date, you can enter it. It works exactly the same as the regular date fields. So if I were to go in here and say birth date is after, I can put, I can put 10 January 1830. Okay, so I can enter it however I want, or I can put 1/10/1830. I can enter it in whatever format I want, and RootsMagic will take care of it just like it does when you enter it into the regular date field. Okay, so let's go ahead and clear this. Now, what we've been doing so far is we've been looking at specific events. Birth date is after, birthplace contains, things like that. But there's times when you want to find something about a place, for example, and you don't necessarily care which event. So when you select your field, there's an option here called any fact. Okay, that's in addition to all of these. And so I can say any fact place contains Iowa. And I can do any fact date, any fact, all the options are still there. So I'm basically saying any fact contains Iowa. In other words, if anything happened in Iowa in their life, when I click OK, it's going to go right here, and this person died and was buried in Iowa. Okay, we got one here that was married in Iowa. Okay, they died in Iowa. So when I do it, when I pick any fact, it's going to give me anybody that had anything to do in Iowa. I'm not limited to a specific type of fact. Okay, so let's go ahead. Now I'm going to show you, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a number of different things. One of these things that's nice is if I go in and I pick a fact type, as I mentioned, these are the different kinds of things that you can look for when it comes to events. I can find people whose birth date, and then I have a bunch of options. Their birth date is this, or is not this, or is before or after this. Their birth date is blank. If I want to find people that I've entered a birth fact for, but I haven't entered a date, I can do that. I can also look for birth date contains if I wanted to find specific text. Okay? I can also look at places. Places can equal something, which means it has to exactly match or not exactly match. It can contain or not contain, less than, greater than. Those let you find everything. Their birthplace is greater than S, which means it's only going to find places that start with T or later in the alphabet. You also have sounds like. So if you want to find everybody whose birthplace sounds like something, but you're not exactly sure of how it's spelled, you can use sounds like and type it in close to find it that way. Okay, you can also search for place details. Those are going to be the same options as for value, place. Value is going to be the same types of comparisons that you can do. What the value is the same as what maybe you may want to call that the description. So, for example, if you choose occupation, the value is going to be teacher or farmer or engineer. It's going to be whatever you put as the value of the occupation. one little trick there is, if you choose death, when you choose death value, the death value is the cause of death. Okay, so some people ask us about the cause of death. Death value is the cause of death. So if you wanted to find everybody whose cause of death contains, cancer or, heart disease or whatever, you can use the death value contains to find that type of a value in your database. Okay. You also have note. So if I was going into the birth, I could say I want to find everybody whose birth note contains some text. And notes, all you can really search for is, does it contain it or not, or is that note blank or not? So if you wanted to find everybody whose birth note contained Disneyland, I don't know why it would, but if that's what you were looking for, you could come up here and say, I want to find everybody whose birth note contains Disneyland, and that's going to find those people for you. Okay, you can also search for sources or in sources. So if you want to find everybody whose birth source, okay, now don't worry when you see how long this list is that I click on. Obviously, you can just say, do they have a birth source? Does it exist? Yes or no. But you can also search for everybody whose birth note does not exist, what their footnote, their short footnote, their bibliography, the text, the comments, the name of it, the reference numbers, the detail reference numbers, the detail text, and the detail comments. Okay, and for every one of those, you can choose whether that piece of information contains something, does not contain something, or is blank or is not blank. And so that's a good way to search for people who have something in a particular source. Okay, we've already done exists. Age. Okay, age is great. Age is something that normally you cannot search for in other programs, and that's because age is not a field. It's not data that's sitting there in your database. It's something that actually has to be calculated as you're doing the search. But it's great. Well, in this case, a birth age, I haven't found that to be very useful because it always tends to be 0 for me. So I can't really search for birth age equals anything other than 0. But for any other fact, I can go in and say I want everybody whose death age is greater than 70. And that's going to give me a group of people who lived to be at least 70 years old. Okay, or I could say less than 20 if I want to find everybody who died before they were 20. Or I can use death age is greater than this amount and death age is less than that amount. I can get a list where I can find everybody who lived to a particular age range. Okay, so let's go ahead and continue a little bit farther. So if I did death age is greater than 70, click OK. Okay, so here's somebody that lived to be at least 70. And as I click on next, I can go through and see all of these people. Now I'm seeing a couple of questions about printing the results of this. And what I'm going to do is keep going with what we're doing here, and keep in mind how we're doing this. We're on this screen and we're going into this find with this criteria, because I will show you a way to print it. You can't print it directly from this Explorer. Explorer is basically a way to go through your list and just kind of scan through your list and find the people that are matching. But I am going to show you a way to print the people that match any of these same criteria that we're showing you. Okay, so let's go ahead and go into Find, and let's clear this out. And we're going to show you a few extra things you can do. Okay, I'm going to go in here, and you can see most of these are fairly straightforward. They're fact types: adoption, ancestral file numbers, bar mitzvahs, birth. But there's an occasional one that's a little bit different, and this is one right here. So I'm going to go ahead and say color coding, and when I choose color coding, I can go and find everybody whose color coding is red or lime or blue or fuchsia or any of the colors that you can choose from, or is not a single color. So if I wanted to say go find everybody whose color coding is blue, okay, and I'm going to have to move off of each person as it selects them, but you can see that person is blue. So as I go next, you'll see it's actually moving to each person whose color coding is blue. So if you are using your color coding to show specific kinds of information, in other words, if you're doing things like color coding the ancestors of a person, this makes this an extremely powerful feature, because normally what you're doing is you're selecting people based on their data. You're not selecting people based on their lineage. You're selecting people here based on what their facts, what their information contains. But if you were to go in to RootsMagic, let's hop out right here. Let's go back right here. If I were to go in here and choose this ancestral line, in other words, say color code Howard Smith and his ancestors as red, then when I go into that search and say find, if I say color coding is red and birthplace contains Iowa, okay, what I've basically just done is I said I want everybody who is an ancestor of Howard Smith who was born in Iowa. Now that ancestral thing is not something you can normally do from a criteria screen like this, but by using color coding, you can add lineage selection in here as well. So when I click OK, it's only going to go to those ancestors who were born in Iowa. Okay, and it looks like there's only the one. Okay, so that's a very, very powerful capability using color coding to put criteria based on lineages. Okay, let's go ahead. We're going to look through these fields. We're going to come down. We're going to find another one that's a little bit different from events, and that is the date last edited. Now, when you edit a person in RootsMagic, it keeps track of the date you edited them. In other words, the date you made a change to them. So I could come in here and I could say, I want the date last edited equals, and let's go ahead and put today. And I could say today is June 1st, 2011. So in other words, I'm saying I only want to see people that I've edited today. I could say after a particular date or between this date and that date. Click OK. Okay, here's one, Carlos and Burton Howard Smith. And those are the only two in this database that I have edited today. So that's a good way of going in and seeing the people that you just recently changed or that you changed within a particular time frame. Okay, so let's go ahead and hop out of here. We're going to clear again. We're going to go through here. And we have one right here, FamilySearch ID. Okay, for those people who are using new Family Search, what this lets you do is find everybody who is matched up to a particular person on new, or to a particular ID out on New Family Search. So this lets you go ahead and select people based on that. Okay, let's go ahead and come down just a little bit farther. The living flag. Okay, as you probably remember, in fact, I'm going to actually hop out of here first. When you edit a person, when you go into a person's edit screen, they all have a checkbox right here called living. Okay, and that's where you can say whether or not this person happens to be living currently, and the privatizing features all use that. But there may be a time when you want to know whether that living flag is set or not. The living flag, unchecking that is useful when you have a person who does not have a death or burial or a death-like fact, but you know that that person is not living. That's where that comes in useful. That tells RootsMagic this person is not living even though I don't necessarily have any death information for him. So when we go in to find, we have the ability to find out all those people whose living flag is true or is false. Okay, now if you remember, when we went into one of these fact types, let's say military, we could actually look for the military notes and sources right in here. But there's times when we want to actually see the notes or the sources that are either family notes or general notes. And so if I wanted to look for their general information notes, if I click on that, that general note is going to let me find everybody whose general note contains or does not contain something or is blank. Okay, I see a question. They don't know the difference between the living fact and the living flag. Okay, the living flag, let's go ahead and hop out of here. The living flag is just that checkbox. That's all that is. There's a fact type. If you go into here, there's a fact type called living. Okay, living is a fact type just like any other fact type, birth or death or burial or whatever. The thing about living, a living fact, is that it has a date, it has a place, and it has all of these items. It has your notes, your sources, your media, as opposed to just a flag saying yes or no, he was living. The living fact is generally used when you find a piece of information that says this person happened to be alive at the time, and they happen to be alive on a particular date or in a particular place, but it doesn't say anything else about that. The person's name might appear on a will saying, I'm leaving such and such to this person, or this person attended a whatever. Something where it's not necessarily a specific fact, but you do want to actually say they happen to be alive at that time. And so that's what the living flag is generally used for. Okay, the other thing, in addition to the notes, is you also have the ability to look at your family note, your family sources, or your general sources. Okay, so as you can see, this criteria screen lets you select just about anything you can think of in order to search for a person. You can search for a person based on dates, places, notes, sources, whether that piece of information exists. You can search for based on color coding, which allows you to search for people based on their lineage. You can search for when a person's record was last edited, whether a person is living or not. So there are a lot of different ways to use this particular screen in order to search for people. Okay, so what we've basically shown kind of all of the ways to find a person in Explorer. Now, there's also a few other things here in Explorer, as long as we're talking about it at the search screen. If I select a person, I can actually come over here and edit that person right from this search screen. I don't have to select him, go back to the main screen and edit him. I can come right up here and click Edit and go right into his edit screen and edit him right from here. There's also a little drop arrow so that I can actually edit that person, or I can edit the notes, the sources, media, his to-do list, or his addresses. And I can do that. So for example, if I click on the birth, I can come down here and click on birth note, and I can edit the birth note right from here. So I can go in and edit that. Now as for family members, if I am looking at a person and I want to see more information about this particular sibling, I can just highlight that sibling and say go to selected person, and it jumps to that sibling right here. I don't have to try to remember his name and come back over to the list and type it in. I can actually just go select them right here and jump to them right from there. Okay, so that is the person list, or the RootsMagic Explorer as we call it. So let's go ahead and move down to the next search screen, and that is the family list. Okay, now the family list is going to give me a list of all of the families or the couples in my file. And what this does is lets me to go down through here, and I can search, I can select the fathers, and as I select a father or mother, I can see the marriage date, but as I select one, if they have any children, okay, if they have any children, somebody here has to have some children, there we go. If they have any children, it's going to list those children as well. And from this screen, I can go into the father's edit screen or the mother's edit screen, or I can choose to sort in a different order. Right now, it's sorting by the father's name. So if I start typing SMITH, comma, DA, it's going to move and search based on the father. Okay, but I can also go and say I want this to be sorted by the mother's name instead. And so now I can see my list, I can see my list based on the mother's name. So if I come in here and type SMITH, you can see it's now searching as I type based on the mother's name. Okay, and I can also go in and I can sort it by the marriage date as well. Okay, so that's the family list. Kind of a handy little tool to let you find a couple or a family. If you find a couple that you're interested in and click OK, RootsMagic is going to select that couple on whatever screen you happen to be on, the pedigree view, the family view, descendants, or whatever. Okay, let's go back up to search. And we have an option, go to root person. Okay, a lot of times you may be wandering around in your database and kind of get lost down in the boonies of your family tree. Well, if you ever want to get back to that starting person, you can come to search and choose go to root person, or you can just press the hotkey Control Home. And what that's going to do is that's going to move you from this person or this group of people you have back to your root person. Okay, it sets you right back to that root person. So that's a quick and dirty way to get back to where you were going. Now, if you want to change whoever the root person is, that's easy enough. You just find the person you want, right-click on their name, and say set as root person, and that person will now become the new root person. And whenever you do that Control Home, they will be the ones that will be jumped to this location. Okay, move to primary position. Okay, this is a little different. What this means is in the program, this is considered the primary position. Okay, your family, the primary position would be as one of the parents. Descendants, primary position would be right here. What this means is if you happen to be highlighting a person right here and you would like to see this person down here in this root position, but you don't want to make them the root person, normally what you would do is you'd start clicking on the little arrow to make her move to here, and then to here, and then to here, and then to here. That's what move to root primary position does. It says move her down to that primary position just all in one shot. So if I want Phoebe Martin down there, click it. She is now down here. She's not the root person. In fact, if I go up to search and say go to root person, it's going to go back to my root person. All it does is temporarily moves her down to that starting position on the tree for me. Okay, let's go ahead and go down to bookmarks. Now, bookmarks is an item that's actually over here on the side list, and that's a bookmark right there, the little book with the little bookmark. When I go to bookmarks, what this lets me do is select people in my file to bookmark them, and it works just like a bookmark in a book. It's a way to go back to that person fast. So I have Isaac Mead, and I have no idea where Isaac Mead, I mean, he's probably up this line somewhere, obviously. But if I wanted to get back to Isaac Mead, instead of pressing the arrow, clicking this arrow to try to move and find him, or instead of coming up to the search screen and typing Mead, comma, Isaac, I can just say, I've got him bookmarked, go to him. And there it is. It jumps right to him. So if I want to bookmark a person, like if I want to be able to come back to Thomas William Jones quickly, whenever I've got him highlighted on the screen, I just click plus and it adds him to the bookmarks. And these bookmarks are kept, even when I exit out of the program and come back in, these bookmarks are still there. So they are persistent within the database. If I want to remove it, if I don't need them anymore as a bookmark, I can just highlight them, click the little X, and that removes them from my bookmarks. Okay, and I can also go through the menu here. If I want to bookmark a person, I can do Control B, and that will quickly add them to that bookmark list for me. Okay, the last thing I want to show you here on the search menu is history. And history is basically a tab as well. It's this tab right here. And what history does is it keeps track of the people I visited. So the last person I looked at, or that I actually clicked on, was Thomas William Jones. If I come over here to Betsy Mead, you can see as soon as I click on her, RootsMagic adds her to the top of my history list and pushes everybody down. And it's going to keep track of about the last 200 or 300 people that you visited. So if you remember you looked at somebody recently, you can scroll down here and find them. Or you can come in here and clear the history list. Now the history list doesn't remember itself from time to time, as you get out of the program and go back in. It does start new each time. One of the things that's kind of neat about the history list, though, is that if you look under that search menu, you have back and forward. And so I don't have to come over to this history list and click to go look through them. I can do Control left and Control right to move back and forth through this list. I can also come into this menu and keep clicking back and forward if I want. So if I do Control left, okay, there's Betsy. Control left, there's Thomas, Dr. James Smith, Isaac, Dr. James Smith, and so on. And if I start doing Control right, it starts going back up through that list until it gets back up to the top. Now, one of the things you can do is if you don't want to have to remember Control left and Control right to move back and forth through your history, and you don't want to sit here and dig through the menu every time to select them, what you can do is you can customize your toolbar. So I'll show you kind of quickly how you can do that. What you can do is come up to your toolbar, that's this bar with all the little buttons and pictures, and right click. Okay, don't do the regular left click, do the right click, and you're going to have an option called Customize. When you click on Customize, it's going to bring up a screen that looks like this, where you can turn the toolbar on and off. Okay, don't do it, because then you're going to sit there and wonder how your toolbar disappeared and how to get it back. But you could turn it off if you wanted. See, when I uncheck it, it disappears. Okay, don't do that. But if your toolbar does ever disappear, that's how you can do it. You can come back into Customize, and you can right-click up on the menu as well as the toolbar to get to this screen. But what we want to do here is we want to go into the commands. When we go into the commands, here's all those menu items. File, edit, lists, add, file, edit, lists, add. These are all those menus. So that menu items we were looking for were under search. So when I click on search, here's those different commands that are under that search menu. And I can just click on one of these commands and I can just drag and drop it up onto my menu. Up onto my toolbar. Now if you ever wanted a button to go back to the root person, might as well grab one of those too. So I can grab that and put that up there as well. The thing that's nice is as long as you're on this screen, you can actually drag and drop these buttons up here. So if you want to rearrange a few things, if you wanted your merge button to be farther over here, drag it over. As long as this customized screen is open, you can do that. If there's buttons on the toolbar that you never use, so for example, let's say you never use your sources, and that's a bad habit. I don't recommend that. But if you didn't want that, if you click that, you can drag that. And you can see how it makes an X on the little cursor right there. That means if I drop it off of the toolbar, it's going to be taken off. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to leave it back up there. But you can remove buttons, you can add buttons, and you can rearrange buttons. So I'm going to go ahead and click Close. I now have a home button. If I click on home, it takes me back to that root person. And I can use these buttons to move back and forth. Okay, and that happens to be the wrong direction. So if I click on this, you can see as I click right there, if you watch the little gray highlight right there, it's moving down through my history list. Okay, if I decide that I'm bored with that, right-click, Customize, go back into Commands, and just drag those back off the toolbar, and I'm done. Okay. Somebody asked if the toolbar is missing what do you click on to bring it back to customize? Just right-click on the menu. If you right-click on the menu, it'll do the same thing. Okay, so now what we've done is we've shown you a few things there. There's one last item over here on the on that side list, and that's the main tab. This is another quick way to search. In fact, it's probably the fastest way to search if you know the person's name. So if you know the person's name and just want to start typing it, instead of coming up and clicking on search and digging down through there, just click on that side list and start typing right there. Smith, comma, C-H-A-R. And as you type, it's going to automatically change your view to whoever matches what you've typed so far. Okay, so it's a quick way, if you know the person's name, just to quickly go in and search to bring up that particular person. Okay, let's go back to our root person. Okay, so we kind of showed you all kinds of ways to search for data within your file. Okay, you can now search for people by typing their name, by typing part of their name, or by finding people based on events or their sex or their name or whether events exist, or color coding to do lineage or the date you edited it, or so on. Okay, what I want to do is I'm going to switch gears here a little bit and show you how to search for information on the internet. And we're going to do that with what's called the Web Search tab. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and click on the Web Search tab. And what RootsMagic does is it has a browser window right here. Now, on your computer, you're going to see a lot more here than I do. I'm at a very low 800 by 600 resolution. I can almost guarantee 99% of you are going to be at a higher resolution, so you're actually going to see a lot more information in this window. What RootsMagic does is, as I click on a person's name, RootsMagic is going to search a particular website. In this case, FamilySearch, because that's what I've told it to search for a person. Okay. Now, what you're going to do is you're going to see a lot of where it says unable to display results or not found. If you keep in mind that this database is not real people, so hopefully these fake people are not going to be found out on FamilySearch or Ancestry or whatever. Okay, so now right now I'm searching FamilySearch, but if I click the little drop button, I have a number of these that I can select from. So if I switch to Ancestry, what RootsMagic is going to do is whoever I've selected over here on the list, it is going to search Ancestry, okay, for those records. Okay, if I come and then if I switch to a different person, a different fake person, of course, it's going to find all the copies of that fake person down on Ancestry. Okay, now I can go through and you can see the ones that are built in. Ancestry, the Ancestry message boards. We have some general ones like Bing and Google and Yahoo. We also have ones like FamilySearch, Find a Grave, Footnote, Genealogy Bank, RootsWeb, World Vital Records. Okay, keep in mind that all RootsMagic is doing the search. It does not include a free subscription to Ancestry. You know, a $29 program. But unfortunately, we are not able to provide a $300 a year subscription to Ancestry at that price. But it will take you to that page. If you do have an Ancestry account, then of course it will use your full paid Ancestry account. You'll just log in and it will take care of that for you. So some of these sites are free. FamilySearch is a free site. RootsWeb is kind of a free site. It's owned by Ancestry, so it's not always completely what you would call free. But what's really nice about this is I can come down here and I can manage these search providers. In other words, I can go ahead and modify these, or I can add my own. Okay, so I'm going to come down here and I'm going to say Manage Search Providers. And when I do that, RootsMagic's going to ask me, of these ones that are built in, are there any that I don't want showing in that pull-down menu? So if I never search Yahoo or World Vital Records or Bing or Google, if I don't search any of those, I can uncheck those, and when I click OK, those are not in that menu anymore. So I can hide the ones that I don't necessarily want to use. And I can go back anytime I want and turn those back on. You know, if I decide, yeah, I'm going to start using them, I can turn them back on. Okay, now what I'm going to do is the other option is custom search providers. And this is where I can add my own. Okay, so I'm going to come down here and I am going to open up my browser. And I'm going to bring my browser up here. And I am going to go to ellisisland.org. Okay, probably have heard about this. Okay, this is a site where I can do searches through the Ellis Island passenger list. So I'm going to come back in to RootsMagic, and I am going to say I want to add a new custom search provider. In other words, I want to add a new item to this list. I want to add Ellis Island. So I'm going to come up here and I'm going to type Ellis Island. This is right here the name that I want to show up in that list. Okay, and then I have the instructions. Go visit that search engine in my browser and search for John Doe, born in 1700 and died in 1800. Okay, follow these instructions. Don't go out and search for some random person that happens to be in your database, because this isn't going to work. You have to look for this person, even though this person doesn't really exist. That's what RootsMagic uses to take care of this for you. So I'm going to go back out here to Ellis Island, and I'm going to search for John Doe. Year of birth is 1700. Okay. Now, you can have it. In some of these, it'll ask you, do you want to find by the exact year, or do you want some range? I usually loosen them up a bit because I don't necessarily have the exact year of birth, and sometimes the site does not have the exact year of birth. You also don't necessarily have to provide all of that. So for example, if I don't want to provide a year of birth, I can just search for John Doe. So let's go ahead and search for John Doe, and I'm going to leave the birth out. That way it's going to find, especially if you have a lot of unique names in your file. So I'm going to go ahead and say start the search, and Ellis Island's going to come back and say, yeah, there's only like 18,000 John Does in there. Actually, it says there's only 30. But the important part is right up here. And of course, Explorer makes it hard to see this because it shrinks that down. But this right here is what we're interested in, because this is how Ellis Island is searching for John Doe. So once I've done this search, I don't care about these results. I care about this. And so I click on that so it's highlighted, and then I can right-click and then choose copy. So I'm copying that to the clipboard. In other words, I'm saying put on the clipboard the URL that Ellis Island uses to find John Doe. Come back to here, and I'm going to go right here, and I'm going to paste. Okay. Now you'll notice when I pasted that right here, this is the Ellis Island search. But you'll notice where it used to say John and used to say Doe, by me pasting it into here, it put these little given and surname fields in. That's how RootsMagic knows where to put the names. So I'm going to go ahead and click OK. Ellis Island, I've added that, and I can go add others. I'm going to click OK. And now, when I come to web search, I can go down here, and Ellis Island is now one of the sites. And I'm going to go ahead and say, I want to start searching Ellis Island. And it's going to come up and it's going to say, hey, there are no matches for Hiram Silas. But I'm going to go ahead and come up here to a name I put in here, Carlo. When I click on Carlo, okay, there we go. There's my matches right there. Okay, so that's how you can go in and add websites, searches for websites into your web search, so you can customize your web search page to be able to search in different websites. Now there is a few caveats. Some of these websites, they don't do it this way. They don't put the name and the birth date and the death date in the URL. They basically use kind of a back-end database-y thing. Those currently we are unable to support because we need them to be able to use this URL format in order to do that. But if you do a search on a website and that website puts the name of the person and things like birth dates, if you see that in that URL when you do the search, that means that's a website that you can add to your web search. Okay, last thing I want to talk about here, and I promise this, is we were doing those searches in RootsMagic, and several people wanted to know, is there a way to see those people? In other words, can I get a list of those people? There's a couple of different ways you can do it. I'm going to go up in here to reports, and I'm going to show you the quick and dirty way, although probably the best way to do it is to come down here to reports and create a custom report. When you create a custom report, you can choose which fields you want to include. You know, do you want the person's name and their birth date and death date, or their birthplace and birth date and birthplace? You know, what do you want to include? You can choose exactly what you want to include, kind of how to lay that person's information out on the screen, what order you want it to sort that list, and then finally, you can choose which people using that criteria that we showed you. Now, if you want to do that, we have a webinar that's completely on creating custom reports. So you want to go to that webinar and watch that webinar on creating custom reports. That'll show you how to do the layout and then use the techniques we learned earlier today to actually select the people that you want in there. Okay, but the quick and dirty way to do this is I'm going to go to lists, and then I'm going to come down here to the individual list. Okay, so the individual list is the one that I'm going to choose, and when I print an individual list, I can have it include all kinds of information. So if I were to check this, for each person, in addition to their name, it would print all of their facts. It would print their parents. It would print their spouses and their children. If all I want is a list of their names, just uncheck all of those. So all you get is rows with just their names. Okay, and to select the people you want, right here you're going to choose you want selected people. By default it's going to say everyone, but I'm going to say I want to select from a list. And when I say select from a list, it's going to bring up this screen that looks almost exactly like RootsMagic Explorer. Okay, the screen we were looking at, it looks almost exactly like it. The only difference is that each person has a check mark in front of their name. Okay, so I could do this the hard way and just go check the people I want to include. Okay, there were 3% of you that you guys have to do it that way because you said it's easier to go look at each person and do it. So that's how you guys can do it. Okay, for the rest of you, I'm going to show you guys how to do it. And the way you're going to do that is you're going to go up here to mark a group of people, and when you do that, you can mark the family of the highlighted person, everybody in their tree, ancestors or descendants, but this is the one we want right here. Select people by their data fields. So when I select the people by their data fields, okay, I'm going to come up here and I'm going to see this exact same screen that we saw before, and I can use the exact same selections. So I can come up here and I can say I want everybody whose birth place contains Iowa and sex is female, and then I can put in the other criteria if I wanted to put in that other criteria about and their birth date is after this date and their birth date is before this date and their marriage fact does not exist. I can do that as well. I'm just going to stick with these just to give us a few more people. I'm going to say OK. RootsMagic is going to tell me it's marked 7 people. And when I click OK, I can scroll down and I can see the 7 people. You'll see that I'll have a check mark in there. It's marked those people. Now, it's especially powerful about doing it with a list like this is I can do this, but then I can go in to mark group and I can actually redo it. So I can actually do multiple criteria to select or unselect a group of people. So if I wanted everybody who wasn't born in Iowa, I could have done it from that same screen the same way, or I could have come in and said mark and said everybody in the database, and that would have put a check mark in everybody's screen. And then I could have said unmark people by the data fields, and I could have said everybody born in Iowa, and it would have gone through and it would have unchecked anybody born in Iowa, and so that would have given me everybody except those born in Iowa. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and stick with this group of 7 people, the 7 females born in Iowa. Click OK, and click Generate Report. Okay, and there is my list of the 7 females born in Iowa. Now, like I say, this is the quick and dirty way because all you're getting is the names. If you were to use the custom reports as I recommend, I could have said, I want not only their names, but I also want their birthplace and their birth date, so I could see where in Iowa they were born and when they were born. And in a custom report, I could have also, in addition or instead of sorting by their name, I could say sort by their birth date or sort by their birthplace. Okay, so it's a lot more flexible if you use the custom reports, because you can get a lot of combinations of which people, what data, how it's sorted than you can just from the simple individual list. But like I say, if all you want is a quick list of people, that's the way to do it, is the individual list and go select those people. Okay, so it looks like there's a couple of questions here. Somebody asked about the auto search on web search, and I did want to mention that. What the auto search check mark on the web search is for, what that means is if that's checked, as soon as I click on a person's name over here, it's going to immediately do that search. Okay, if I uncheck that and switch to a different person, it does not automatically change the search to that person until I come over here and click the search button, and then it does that. Now, the reason you might want to do that, I usually leave it selected because I'm usually just looking at information, but you may want to leave that unchecked because you may want to go in and select a person, do the search for them, but then you might want to look at the edit screen for somebody else. So you could come in and double click on a different person, look at their edit screen, compare it to what's up here on that search without having it change to this person. So that's just an option that's available. That's what the auto search option is for. Okay, so I see a lot of other questions. Can reports be exported to Excel? Yes. How do you put a heading on the report? That's in the options on the various reports. Anything report oriented, we have a webinar on all the reports in the program. That's a great one to watch. We also have another webinar on publishing, which kind of takes all the different reports and combines them into a single book. So like I say, I kind of recommend you take a look at the webinars, the other webinars. I think there's like 18 or 19, 20 of them. So take a look at those, and you know, they'll answer a lot of questions. So, are there any other questions, Mike, related to searching?
It looks like you've covered the big ones that people have been asking.
Okay. Well, hopefully we've given you a lot of good ideas on how to search. Like I encourage you to go in and experiment. You know, go into this search screen, just click on that search screen and experiment. Click on Find and NameFind. Keep in mind that when you're searching, all it's doing is looking at the file. Okay, it's not going to hurt anything. You can come in here and experiment and try things and find out how to do this. It's not going to hurt any of your data. Okay, that being said, the last thing I'm going to show you could hurt your data, so be careful with it. And that is, under search, you have the option search and replace. Okay, So if you're worried about hurting your data, don't use this one. A search and replace will search through your database looking for information, and you tell it what to search for, and if it finds that, what to replace that with. Okay, so for example, over here, I've got several Howards. If you remember, we had several Howards right here. Well, if for some reason I said all my Howards are really Howie, okay, if I click OK, I'm telling it to search in the given names field. I'm searching for Howard, and I'm replacing it with Howie. So when I click OK, it finds the first one. Here's the name, Howard, and I can either say replace this Howard with Howie, and it will replace that one and then go on to the next one. Or I can say replace them all, which means just change all Howards to Howie and don't stop on each one asking me. Or I can say skip, which means does not mean change his name to Skip. It means skip this one and go on to the next Howard. So if I click on replace, it replaces that one and it takes me to the next one, which in this case you may not have noticed that, but that junior changed to senior. So I'm just going to say replace all. So when I said replace all, notice over here, all my Howards are now Howies. Okay, that's what search and replace does. Searches for information and replaces it with something else. So to show you the kinds of things you can search and replace on, you can search and replace surnames, nicknames, prefix, suffix, places, multimedia file names, notes in general, or family or facts. So you can actually search and replace for text in notes and replace it. Okay? One place where it's particularly useful is in multimedia file names. There may be times when you've moved all your pictures from one folder to another, and when you do that, you'll notice your picture will have a little broken chain link right down here in the corner. That means RootsMagic thinks your picture is in one place, but it's not there. Okay, that's what the little broken chain link means. It means your picture is not where RootsMagic thinks it is. So if you know where your pictures used to be, you can search for that. So you can say my pictures used to be in C:/users/Bruce/my pictures, and now my pictures are on D:/GenPics. Okay? What that's going to do is if I click OK, it's going to look for this path for every picture to replace it with this path. And it's going to do like it did before. It's going to ask me to confirm each one, or I can say replace all and it'll just rip through and do it. Now this is not as important as it used to be, because now when your picture links get broken, you can go to the media gallery, and under the tools button there's an option called fix broken media links, which takes care of that for you. But if you are comfortable with path names, this actually goes faster, because all it's doing is actually replacing where it used to be with where it is now, and it fixes it almost instantly, whereas the search and fix broken media links has to search your whole hard drive looking for those pictures. So anyways, that's what search and replace is. Again, match case means it has to be the same case. It means if this was spelled users uppercase, this is not going to match. So usually you don't use that, but it's available. There's an option if you want that. So hopefully we've given you a lot of tools for searching for your data, whether it's inside of RootsMagic or whether it's out on the web. And hopefully you'll be able to go find some of that information you've been looking for. Thanks.